There's no way God could love me. I'm a thief. I'm a murderer. I'm a liar. I'm a convict, homeless, beating people for money, hurt my own family. The list goes on and on about how God could never love me. But all this is a lie. How do I know? Because my name's David Metcalf, and this is my story. Growing up was different for me. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. The only thing I ever knew about Jesus Christ is when my grandpa used it in vain. My sister and I were taken away from my mom at a young age. I still don't understand why. I don't know how life would have been if I had my mom around at that time. Well, my grandma had a pretty mean temperament in her, and later when my sister had moved away, she started to take it out on me. She choked me, grabbed me by my throat, dug her nails into my neck, threw me into some shrubbery that I went to school with a puncture wound in my neck from the branches, and there was times where I stayed home from school until the fingerprints left my face. It was hard with my grandma. She'd leave us at neighbors' houses. One of the neighbors in particular had stayed the night at their house, and I'd been doing yard work for them, and that wasn't uncommon for we all stayed together. Their kids were close to my age, and so we all just played together, hung out together, and so when it was like, oh, just stay over, and I woke up to him sexually assaulting me. It angered me. I got scared. I didn't want to tell anybody. It really freaked me out. I started to question my sexuality and my belief in trust in people, and knowing that my grandma, who's supposed to protect me, put me in a situation like that. It made me very hardened towards her. I constantly was questioning who God was at that point. There's no God. You can't be a God if it's a man like that's allowed to just roam freely. I started to find a way to cope with the anger, with the hurt and the death of people around me. I started into smoking pot and drinking. I started getting angrier, started questioning, with my grandma and being defensive with her and fighting back. And in order to regress my anger, I just started smoking more pot and drinking more, to the point where my grandma finally just decided to send me away to my real father, who I'd only met once in my life. I just felt awkward. I felt like, where have you been? You came in 14 years, I met you once, and then I don't see you again until I'm 16. And not having a mom, that was my mom, and her love was all that I had, was hers and my grandpa's love. And then, go to my dad's, and there was not really any love there. And then I moved to my aunt and uncle's, and I was taken in as one of their own, but I wasn't one of their children. So that desire to have a family started to weigh on me. I decided to move from Vermont to here in Wyoming to live with my mom. She was everything that I was told she was growing up. She liked to party, she liked to drink, she liked to smoke pot. She was more of a big sister than she was a mom to me. When she got married to my stepdad, he kind of could be abusive verbally, tell me I was stupid, you're not gonna amount to anything. Seeking out relationships because I wanted somebody to love me. 1999-ish, I met, would be my son's mother. She was 7 months pregnant when we met. Then her and I ended up getting married, and we had our own son. The perfect opportunity for me to finally have my own family. It was kind of the best life ever. I'd had everything I wanted. I had a wife, I had 2 kids, I had a house, I was living the American dream. 2001, I was hauling windows for a local window company here in Cheyenne, and I was on a daily trip to Colorado. I was making a U-turn, and somebody went under the back end of my semi and was killed. it kind of downward spiraled me into the drinking and the drugs. And then my wife decided that it was time for me to leave, that she didn't want to be with me anymore. I took off and went back to California. I went from there to the bottle and then into the harder stuff. I went straight from the weed right into the meth, and it just went bad from there. I felt that the partying and that godless lifestyle was better for me, and I just became the devil's puppet. He got to do whatever he wanted. He put something in my head, I went with it. And I didn't care whose life I destroyed. Mine was already destroyed, so I didn't care. I slept with married women. I destroyed their households. I brought drugs into their households. I would tell the women what they wanted to hear about their husbands. I would make up stories about their husbands so that I could take them. The drug world led me into different relationships with different women, and one of them, her husband, he was a convict. He had been incarcerated when her and I got together. We shared a drug lifestyle as well as sex and whatever else. He got released from prison. We continued our relationship behind his back. At some point, I think he started to catch on that we had something going on. He had made several different threats to me. And then in one night, he showed up at my grandparents' house where I lived in their property, and I didn't know it, but he had been stalking me throughout the night. I told him to leave. He told me the only way he was leaving was in a body bag. He started to reach into his coat, and I shot him in the chest with a shotgun. From that point, everything went blank. At that time, when I was questioned by law enforcement, his criminal record was huge and mine was nothing. So I was released. They considered it justifiable homicide. That shooting led me into a world that I never thought I'd ever get into. Once my name got, and they knew that I was willing to kill somebody. I was a hitman. I did drug deals with the cartel. I went on about a 10-year binge of not knowing who I was, just living a godless lifestyle. One night I got caught and I got arrested, and for possession of a controlled substance. I was in the county jail, and my grandma, of all people, came to visit me, and that tore me up. But there was some guys in there that were, as we called them, they were the Bible thumpers of the jail, and they invited me to prayer circle one night, and they said that they saw that I needed prayer. And I was like, yeah, there's, I don't really believe in a God. And they prayed over me, and I slept a little easier, I think. They'd always tell me, when you get out, you need to get in a good church. And I would, okay, yeah. Well, then the only way to get out of the cell block was to go to either church or medical. Well, they had Easter Sunday service, and I was like, I'm gonna go. Get out of this, get away from all these people, take a break. And that was the first time I'd ever heard the story of Jesus. I'd never heard and I couldn't understand how I'd never heard it my whole life. But there I am sitting in there listening, and they do altar call. And I felt compelled to raise my hand, that I felt that Jesus was talking to me. So here I am, barely raising my hand, like looking around to make sure nobody's looking. I was kind of embarrassed. I was afraid, like, what's gonna happen if they find out I'm a Christian in here? Then I looked, and there's all these grown men that are tattooed, face tattoos, and murderers and whatever else they had done, crying like babies. And I'm like, seeing somebody else cry started getting me like a little teared up, and I felt that that's when Jesus first said, listen, I'm here for you. And I didn't say nothing. I didn't tell anybody. I'd gotten a little pocket Bible, and I kind of hid it. And I was kind of, and lights out, I'd read it in the dark, and I'd hide it under my pillow, and I still didn't believe. Then I got sent to my main prison, and that was like where we had more freedoms, and didn't go to any church services. I didn't do any Bible study, and I had a firefighting job in prison. I had work ethic again, and then I paroled to the homeless shelter. I got there and it was like, holy cow, this is like being in prison again. There's dorms, there's stinky men, I'm like, well then the director, she invited me to church one day and she picked me up, took me. Element was a safe haven for me, and it just made me feel welcomed there. Like I felt this is my kind of thing, and nobody turned me away. Like I just came, I helped out, I was fed, nobody cared, I got rides. People would come pick me up and bring me to church, even though they didn't know who I was. They were like, you need a ride? We'll come get you. What service do you want to go to? I'm like, wait, there's more than one? I just was like amazed how people that didn't know you were so willing to love you. Invited me to come have Thanksgiving with them. I just didn't understand how somebody that didn't know you could love you. There was a calling for volunteers, and I felt like, again, why am I the only one he's talking to? There was messages that I just felt like nobody else was in the room, and it was me that he was talking to. And that's when I started to feel the love of God. But I still had that question of like, how? And then there was one service where I felt compelled to raise my hand again when we called for, to believe in, to follow Jesus. I took salvation call again because I didn't feel that my first one was genuine. I did it because it got me out of the dorm, and this one felt, when it was time to be called, I felt I was the only one that they were talking to. And then I started to, ask God to just open my heart more, to understand him. When I look back, I had all this nice stuff when I ran with the devil. When I ran in his world, I had all kinds of stuff. But when I left him, he took it all with him. He left me broken and left me landing in the gutter. He didn't care. Well, now I don't have the devil. He doesn't sit on my shoulder anymore. Jesus is there. He's the one that stops me from making poor decisions. He's the one that gives me calm. He gives me peace, most importantly. He's taken my anger from me. It's so crazy is that I can turn something over to him, and if I give it to him fully, he takes it and crumples up and burns it, and you never get it back. For me, it was that he loved me, that it was okay to be afraid, and it's okay to follow him, that he's never gonna stop loving you, and that he accepted me for all the dirty evil, and that he will take away all the hurt, all the pain, because he will reveal himself to you the more you accept him. The more you open your heart to Jesus, the more he reveals how much he really loves you. There's nothing easy about being a Christian. It's a constant battle, but it's a good fight. It's a fight worth dying for. That's one of the biggest reasons I serve on safety, is that I will die protecting Christ's word for these people. I will jump in front and I will save anybody. Because he tore me from the garbage dump that I call the life. I didn't think I would ever find this kind of love. Not just from Emily or even you or any of the people that are part of Element. Most importantly, I never thought I'd ever love myself. I didn't know I didn't love myself. That's it. That's it. That's right there. You almost got me.